Hi, having a great day. You're watching JG Entertainment, and for this video, I'm talking to you about Giancarlo Esposito and how he has confirmed that he has had talks with Marvel and the characters that he's had talks with and which one he wants to play. So yeah, this is very interesting, and not just with Marvel but with DC. He gave us like a hint of it, and I was like, okay, it looks like he's talking to DC as well. So yeah, let's go over it. So during the San Antonio Comic Con, Giancarlo Esposito confirmed that he had talks with Marvel. How? Well, he said this. So I have not worked with Marvel yet I've been in a room with them and talked with them. And to answer your question, I think what they do is in lines of that mythological journey that Joe Campbell talked about, who happened to be a friend of George Lucas, that George Lucas put into his stories. They do the same thing. That's what he said. So that's his thoughts on Marvel in general. I think he thinks like Marvel is a very nice fantasy type of world, like really kind of like interesting, just kind of sci-fi world. They go kind of like that type of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think he has a pretty nice perception of Marvel. He doesn't hate it. It seems like he likes it. So after he gave his thoughts about Marvel, just in general with that quote, he said, so there's been talk of Magneto, there's been talk of Dr. Freeze, there's been talk of who else are you talking about over there? He asked one of his people, and he said, oh, Doom. And then there was Professor X, he said. So yeah, that's what the characters like he has talked about. That's very interesting. He said he's talked about Magneto, which is interesting. Magneto is obviously one of the, if not the biggest villain of the X-Men. He's a huge villain, and he's very compelling. I can think he could play him very, very well, to be honest. I think he would do an amazing job. So been talking about Dr. Freeze, which he said Dr. Freeze, which I think means Mr. Freeze. I think he didn't really know who he was. He's not a huge comic book nerd or anything, so that makes sense. So that means, in my personal opinion, that I think that he has talked with DC. I think he's talked with DC with Dr. Freeze. With Mr. Freeze, and I think that's gonna be super interesting. I'm like, yes, he could be a really great Mr. Freeze. I think that'd be super awesome. Perhaps in the Batman 2, does that confirm the Dr. Freeze? The Mr. Freeze might be the villain of Batman 2, perhaps. I think that's very interesting. There's been talks about him playing Dr. Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze. That'd be super interesting. I think the villain of Batman 2 might be Mr. Freeze, thanks to this kind of like revelation. And I think he would play an amazing Mr. Freeze. I think that would be super awesome. I think he would be super good in the role. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It looks like the Batman 2 villain might be Mr. Freeze, and he might play him because he talks with him, which is super awesome. And Doom, obviously, which we know he has to come. He's definitely gonna be in the Fantastic Four movie, and that means that they're already casting Fantastic Four, which is super interesting. I think they might announce that in 1803 in this September 10th, I think it's September 10th. Yeah, I think they're gonna announce the casting for the Fantastic Four because they're already casting them. So yeah, it's super interesting. But yeah, he talks about Doom, and obviously Doom's also gonna show up. Clearly, they're gonna be making him a way bigger villain into Secret Wars because in the comics he is like the biggest villain in Secret Wars. So I clearly think that he's gonna be a big villain. I don't think he's gonna be like a one-time movie thing. No, he's gonna be a huge villain, and I can't wait to see what he does in Secret Wars. So I think he could be really great with that. But then he says that there's Professor X, which is super interesting. Then after that, the actor was asked to name the character he most wanted to play, and this is what he said. He said, pick one. He responded and said, I'm going to go something that is a little bit different. I'm going to go and put it out in the universe that it's Professor X. So yeah, that means he wants to play Professor X. That's the one that he wants to play. That's the one that he's like, yes, that one. Which is super interesting. He said that he's going to go for a little bit of a different pick, which is interesting. So that means he kind of wants to change the formula. Recently you've been seeing him in all these things where he's kind of like the bad guy. The Mandalorian, Stan Edgar, and The Boys, which is so great. And he's super good. Gus and Breaking Bad. He was in Far Cry as well. He's in all these things. And it's super interesting to just see him in all these places, but on all of them he's basically like a bad guy. He's basically a bad guy. He's not like super terrible, but he is a bad guy, you know what I mean? And all this. So yeah, it's super interesting to see like he kind of wants to change it up. He kind of wants to do Professor X now. And, Professor X is really interesting. He's a complex character. He's not always like the nicest guy. Professor X has this like mean side, you know what I mean? He has this backstory. He has this really nice, interesting side to him. And I think he would be an amazing Professor X. I really think that he could do an amazing job. If I had to pick one actor to play Professor X, it probably would be him. I think he would be an awesome person. Who could do better than Patrick Stewart? Giancarlo Esposito. He can do, if not better, just as good as him. Just as good as Patrick Stewart. So yeah, I think Giancarlo Esposito should be Professor X. I think after he said this and how the whole internet has gone crazy after it, I think that he will be Professor X. Karen Feige is looking at this and being like, okay, yeah, he's gonna be Professor X. He's writing this down for sure. I think that's very interesting. So yeah, expecting to hear Professor X after this. I think that Karen Feige and the whole Marvel team is seeing how much of a crazy response he's getting after saying this and how everybody does want to play Professor X. And yeah, I think that would be super awesome. Besides that, they're confirming all these other characters like Magneto are coming, which we kind of already knew. We know Dr. Doom was coming, which is super interesting just to see that they had talked to him about it. And obviously Mr. Freeze for Batman 2, which we didn't know that, and that's actually super interesting. So yeah, he gave a lot of information out there without even knowing that he gave a lot of information out there. But yeah, that's super interesting. I'm super hyped up. Hopefully he gets Professor X because I think he will do an amazing job. Especially after I just saw him like in The Boys, and he did like a really great job with Stan Edgar. I want to see what's next for him. I think Professor X would be a really great role. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this thing. That was my breakdown on him playing Professor X and how he's talked about his other roles. and especially with Marvel and apparently DC as well. So yeah, tell me what you think about it down in the comments. I'm very, very curious. I'm anxious to read it and respond, as well as just leave a like if you're interested in it. It would be very helpful. So please leave a like and subscribe for other content, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, movies, box office. I might start going into gaming also with multiverses. We'll see about that. But yeah, subscribe for other content that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. And yeah, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And this is Gideon Entertainment out.